Authoritarian creep. This term, just based on examining the words, can have two potential definitions, at least for the purpose of this video. Definition number one, not so much. Definition two, for sure, because it's what I'm talking about. But first one we'll go into for a little lighthearted humor. An authoritarian creep would be a person who is some sort of deceptive, unsavory person who is in favor of authoritarianism. This could be applied to useful idiots, I suppose, as well. Because when they don't realize that they're into authoritarianism, I'll use this term later then, they get tricked into being in favor of it and arguing that anyone who is against it is against what they are also against, but believe that they are for. Authoritarian creep. Let's say that the space in between the yellow pads on this clamp represents a concept called freedom. And it needs to be understood that in reality, in actuality, freedom is a nebulous concept. It is not a thing. It could not literally be, clamped into, or onto rather, okay? And neither is it a finite thing that can be placed in an enclosure or anything such. However, when it comes to individual liberties of people living in a group, in a society, with a culture on a planet, which happens to be the scenario we are in, whether or not there are any other iterations, whether or not this is an anomaly, an aberration, or if this is what the norm would be. So let's pretend that the space in between, and as a consequence, the size, the distance of the space in between, is representative of freedom as experienced by individuals in the previous circumstance that I mentioned. Now what you've got is, at this point, people living in it don't recognize that there's even a clamp. Now I can't take this off. There's a little thing on the end, so otherwise I could do that. But okay, so you have the people normally living. This is what they think, but this is what is really going on. Okay, so we have people, we have freedom, we have the clamp. The clamp represents any attempt to infringe on or limit freedom. Now the clamp simply exists because individual liberty has limits when it comes to not infringing on the individual liberty of others. If you were to say the rule of the law shall be do what thou wilt, that could include all kinds of things that could impede and interrupt other people, which would force them, and it would turn into a very savage, dog eat dog, killer be killed kind of world very quickly. That's why we have things like religion and common law that we all are meant to abide by. It's an agreement. It's a social agreement. There is weight behind the words, but the words must be chosen carefully, and sometimes they are carefully chosen to be something that's malleable, that can be adjusted in the future rather than being a set rule forever. As such, the size of this clamp can change. See? Or rather, the size of the space within the clamp. So, over the course of time, it goes from no clamp, which is primitive cave human, spears and animal skins, learning to master fire. Eventually, we get to living together, agrarian society. According to most theories, the history seems to be something of the most successful farmers who were able to best produced for the most amount of people became the lordships. They were the initial lords of the land, were the ones who were the best at providing for everyone else. So from the evolution of the necessity of a leadership role in a society rather than individual animals surviving in the wild, this became the transcendental moment where we changed the environment. Between that and the stone tools we'd been using anyway. We get into Iron Age. We get into all this stuff where, right? Okay, so eventually what happens is there are enough people living in proximity that there have to be sets of rules. Now, previously, of course, it was always city-states and nations. It was empires. It was kings and queens. Lordships over certain areas, but everybody was subject to a crown somewhere. And most of those crowns believed themselves to be subject to a higher power, which oftentimes was actually just being told what to do from somebody near Italy. I say near Italy because the Vatican is not in Italy. The Vatican is its own independent, state. So everywhere on the planet, people live together. We have cities, we have towns, we have communities, we have all of these places where there, even within families, there are rules, and every family's rules are different. If you think that every family was raised exactly the same, or that the school education has the same effect on every person too, no. So let's get to it. In far back as you had your modern old secret societies, your late 19th, early 20th century, early Illuminati era. Most people had zero clue about anything. As time goes on, things happen after Hitler dies or whatever happened at the end of World War II, because there are rumors that there might or might not be a dude that looked like him that made his way to Argentina and died several years later. Who knows? Could have just been a body double. Who knows? Hitler, there's a good example. Well, at this point, you're like, hey, man, there's a clamp, and it's definitely closing in. And they're like, well, no, there isn't. There's all kinds of space, and I don't know what you're talking about with the clamp. And then things get to where it's like, okay, now we're kind of bumping up a little bit on the clamp. And there are people saying, well, these will be your authoritarian creeps that I mentioned, as this represents the authoritarian creep process. An authoritarian creep would be a person saying, well, there's no clamp, it's not closing in. All right, so now we're really starting to bump up against the clamp. And those people would be saying things like, okay, so there's a clamp, but right now it's not closing in. And either someone else says, hey, look over there, or the person themselves goes, regardless, the clamp is just closed in a little bit. And you have this incremental change thing, and people are conditioned, they've been normalized into accepting the idea of incremental change. And in some cases, on very, very large scales, incremental change is necessary because sudden change causes butterfly ripple effect in quick real time with psychology and mobs and other things. It's bad. So sometimes it's good to have incremental change, but when it comes to the authoritarian creep, this is not good. So over time, this process happens. All right, well, now we're having trouble. We can't extend the hand fully. See, now back in the day, let's reminisce. Back in the day, this is what we had. And over time, this is what's happened. Okay, and this is the point where they're like, all right, so there's a clamp. Sure, you're right. But what they're using the clamp for is good. This is for some sort of good. They said so. Okay, so maybe you were right. Maybe we should tell them that the clamp's not okay. It's a little late for that. There's a clamp. It's here. It's doing this. You're not. Hey guys, would you please just go ahead and? Nah. And here's the other thing. What they warned you about when they said so and so is literally Hitler. It's here. This guy is such a fascist. This guy's the authoritarian. What they were trying to tell you was that this existed. Not only did this exist, but the guy that had just gotten into office was going to literally do this. which everyone would notice immediately. And there were all kinds of things where they're, wherever the clamp was at, okay, at the time, nobody's operating this. Maybe sometimes there's just a little smidge of that, whatever. But the whole thing was like, for every we're going to replace 2 regulations with 1 regulation. So what this means is that for every one of these, we're going to have 2 of these. And they were saying, warning, warning, look, see, he's touching that. That means this is going to happen. And that never happened. So where we're at right now is about here. Really starting to bump up against each other. Now, at this point, though, it is possible to, from within the clamp, loosen the clamp. But this is by disregarding who does this and simply doing that. Now, if you got people that are able to do this while you do this, you can get that. You can get that. If it was to be a total bloody French style, whatever, Chinese style, whatever, any of that. Well, Chinese style would be, and French style would be to just rip this little rivet thing off the end and just twang, take that completely off. Throw that thing over there. The problem is that as soon as you do that, somebody else might pick up a clamp and figure out how to put one on. And they may be like, hey, check it out, dude. Look how fucking fast I can go. And you don't want that. The problem is that the reactions happen quickly. You've got so much propaganda in the process of the people that are doing this over time. Hey, look over there. That's propaganda. Hey, what's... Nothing happening. It's just, we're just holding it. That sound, that's nothing. See? It's exactly like it was before. Moving inward quickly. And your authoritarian creeps, your useful idiots, are like, okay, this is for the good of whatever. They, all the way to the end, they'll basically come to the point where you're like this, squishing in on, and they're saying, hey, you need to shut up about the clamp. If you're against the clamp, then you're against the clamp being open. And it's like, okay, but we can't fit. This doesn't work. Well, but the clamp is necessary, and if you're against the clamp, you hate the clamp being open. Okay, but I'd like the clamp to be open. Well, shut up, the clamp needs to be closed so it can be open. At this point, we might as well be here, because any next further step here requires the physical removal of large numbers of people who disagree. In historical past, this has in fact occurred on several occasions, with several authoritarian regimes, governments, to the tune of hundreds of millions of people over the last couple of hundred years. Not to mention however many people over time when you know, the autocratic monarchs and whatnot, their whole, you know, divine primacy or whatever. We in our age of democracy, representation of Republican government, constitutions rather than manifest destiny or whatever, and you know, the fact that ultimately any royal lineage, any crown, claims divine primacy, which is to say that they are somehow more closely related to God than you, and that's why they get to rule. Which is why we have constitutions. The Constitution, like we have in America, which is unique among many, makes very specific statements that other people thought was poetry, and it's like, no, this is law. Same thing with the Declaration of Independence. It is viewed as law by all government entities, including the Supreme Court. It is the legal document on which the country was founded. The Constitution is a legal document describing the construction and operation of government and the preservation of the rights of individuals. That's what that is. What it was meant to be. And it specifically says so. People thought that was poetry, and it's like, no, they're talking about inalienable, as it were, God-given. If your rulers are going to claim that God gave them the right to rule, then you can say, fine, dude, but I can prove that God gave me natural rights that you don't have the right to step on. And, you know, this big rock, this musket, this whatever that I have says, you don't have a right to even try. So stop. That's how that's supposed to work. This is what that does over time, repeatedly. And oh boy, let me tell you, it's going to be tiresome having it. Because there are situations in at work scenarios, other social interactions with people where from time to time you have to check someone. And it's much the same with government. And by the process of electing more people who are more willing to do this, it's not just that they're able to do this, but do they want to push? Do they want to pull? So over time, the authoritarian creep is much more like this. It's very, very subtle, and you never really realize. But then when they're like, the thing is moving inward, and they say that's your mind messing with you. You're just imagining things. You're kind of crazy. And then they're like, okay, well, it's getting close. And at this point, if we want to catch them, they're going to realize they're not realizing that they're bumping or could bump just yet. So hey, everybody, there's an emergency, and for the good of everyone, we need to do this real quick. Oh crap. Well, no, but it's fine. It's fine because it's for the good thing. And if you don't like it, then you hate everyone. Okay, well now you can't either. Now you're getting squished up in with everybody else. Well, I thought I was different. Nope, that's not how that works. It just look at history. History repeats itself, or at least rhymes with itself. Oh look, you're getting squished in. You're up against the clamp. You're the first to go, stupid. See how that works? But you could be the one that is in position to open the clamp more. I hope my metaphor, my little lesson thing here, my object lesson with a toy, well actually with a tool, has made its point. Share this with anybody who seems to not understand this part. Oh wait, who the heck is this? Cool, dude. Have fun questioning who or why or what. It doesn't matter, the guy telling you the story. What matters is what he's saying about the clan. Thank you.